I'm going to mute myself here.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here today. Last week, I think it was, we had a little technical difficulties, but we are live today, and I am excited about that this week. I am Joanna White. I always forget to introduce myself. I'm Joanna White. I'm a spiritual holistic teacher. I just love everything spiritual, so that's why I'm here with the Mystic Mavens. And today, I get to learn about runes. I know nothing about this, and I'm excited for what Claudia will be sharing with us today. And I'm just going to pass it over to Kathy.
Thank you, Joanna. This is Kathy Basel, dialing in from Lakewood, Colorado, and I'm a transformational life coach and energy healer, loving, helping uplift women to step into their divine power. And I love learning all the little tools that we will. So today's definitely of interest as Claudia shares with us about the runes. But take it away, Miss Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Pilkington, and I'm a spiritual teacher and counselor. And I work with those that are high achievers that are going through anxiety, depression, and are in a general state of sorrow. And I help them work through that so that they can live more peacefully with more meaning and more joy in their life. Take it away, Claudia.
Beautiful. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Claudia Rocafort, and I'm an executive coach. I've also been an actress for 30 years. And what most people didn't know about me is that I've spent the last 35 years working and studying every spiritual path that I could get my hands on. And I started to facilitate. So I'm a spiritual facilitator, and I use a lot of these methodologies to help people clear whatever's in the way of getting from where they are to where they want to get. Now, we've talked over the past few months about all kinds of different things, from raising our vibration. Now, this weekend, I thought, well, it's St. Patrick's, and why not bring a little, I hope you've all had a great weekend, St. Patrick's happy weekend day, but bring a little bit of that Nordic history and culture into light. And the runes were something that I was introduced to goodness, about 30 years ago. And I was absolutely fascinated at that time by Celtic music and Celtic culture and the Vikings. And about 25 years ago, my brother married a beautiful Icelandic woman who only made me much more curious about this culture and about these traditions. And I was fascinated by all of these Nordic ways that came along with magic and mysticism and a very particular type of shaman or a medicine man, right? And we've seen throughout history how these symbols, which are called the runes, have appeared throughout history. Now, nowadays, personally, I tend to use the ones that are more the Viking runes, but there's been several different from the Celtic, from the Norwegian, from the Scandinavian, from the Germanic. There have been historically several different alphabets, particularly 3, and then they've added a few new runes. And the origins is that the Norse used to call them run, meaning mystery, and the Germanic word runa, meaning the letter or secret. The Celts called them runas as well. And so they describe an alphabet that was of Nordic origin that was used to write, but most of these cultures did not necessarily know how to write. So it tended to be the chiefs, the chieftains, some of the medicine women or the medicine men, or the let's say magicians, who really studied the runes and used them and put them together into language or into magic spells. Now, the Elder Futhark, which was the oldest runic alphabet, is a system both of magic and of divination. And it was an alphabet developed literally, like physically, around 50 AD. But historically, it's been around for much longer before that. Now, the mythology tells us that the runes were brought to Odin, the chief of the gods of the Norse mythology, and he sacrificed himself on the tree of life, the tree of wisdom, for 9 days and 9 nights consecutively, hanging himself upside down to receive the wisdom of the runes. So this connects us to that kind of history and that kind of magic of the wisdom mythology of what we need to give in order to receive that wisdom was kind of part of the pagan mythology where it comes from. Now, Odin was the great magician, and among the gods, he was also the god of war. He was the god of heroes and the god of poets. And throughout history, these were used, even though at some point Christianity and kind of tried to put away all of the pagan beliefs and kind of outlaw them and make them so that, they were considered evil and all these things that we've been throughout history, right? The beauty is that these rituals and this mysticism was never lost. It was always maintained throughout history. People handed down their runes, which were often done in stones or pieces of wood. Sometimes they were done in precious stones, and they were handed down as amulets of protection from father to son or from mother to daughter. And so the beauty of these mystic stones that were passed down were part of the tradition, part of the way of giving protection to the family. Now, throughout history, they were used as well as writing. It was an alphabet. They were also used as amulets. So people would pick one particularly or a set of runes that embodied what they wanted to manifest or a god that they wanted to protect them. They were also used for incantations, for magic spells, and divination. And we're going to be using a little bit of that today. Rather than give you a whole lot of history and a whole lot of information, I thought it'd be really interesting to actually give you a sample reading. And for all of us to explore these runes by sharing a sample reading and each one of us asking a question. I will be reading from one of the many books that I have about this to give you a couple of answers and give you some guidance as to how you can use them and give you ideas what you can gain from using these kinds of methodologies and these kind of divination tools that we have throughout history that are folkloric, but that bring back a tradition and a beauty and a connection to the divine, whereby we can all connect on some level with the history of these things and connect to perhaps the moments when we need that extra guidance and we're not hearing the guidance or feeling the guidance through our meditation and we need a little extra help. This is exactly when we want to use these divination tools because they'll help us see what perhaps might be our blind spot at that moment. So having said all of that, and this is a really fun kind of tidbit about the runes. They remained as part of the different cultures, but one of the things that really brought them back was J.R.R. Tolkien wrote about them in The Hobbit and all of its sequels. And they were considered in The Hobbit as the dwarf runes or the magical language of the dwarfs. So that's one of the things that made the 1970s and 80s, bringing back some of these traditions and creating a more popular understanding, or at least knowledge, curiosity about what these runes do and where they come from. So having said that, ladies, I'm going to show you real quickly what the runes look like so that everybody can have a visual picture and what they mean. And I find that this is very helpful. So I'm going to share screen for a moment. And this is the Viking runes. This is the set that I personally like to use. There are different ones that are used in the different alphabets, but this one is kind of the latest and the most, the one that I've seen the most being used for divination. And so every single one of the stones with the symbols, they could be done on bones, they could be done on stones. And like I mentioned before, they could be done on precious metals, they could be used as amulets. So when the magicians used them, they would have them in a bag, usually of stones or made of wood, and they would have all of them, and they would throw them or they would have you pick them. And then they would read according to what the symbols meant. Now, as you can see, some of these are archetypes. It's the self or partnership, or signals, or separation, or strength, protection, defense, fertility, constraint, initiation. So one of my recommendations usually for the runes is really the kind of questions that tend to be really appropriate, and the kind of guidance that they tend to give are for those things that are sort of timeless. When you are in a crossroads and you are confronted with a major decision and you want some deeper guidance as to which way to go, or how to see the larger picture that you're not seeing, right? The other thing that I've always found them to be really good for is when we want clarity. Guide me. I always ask my guides, my angels, and we're going to do this. I'll share with you how I do it, and then I invite you all to discover and create your own way of doing it. But ultimately, I will always close my eyes and take a moment to breathe, and take a moment to kind of calm myself and center myself and ask the grand organizing design of the universe to please guide me through this medium, that I may gain the insight, the wisdom, and the clarity that I seek, that my guides, my angels, the masters will support me and show me the path of light. So that's how I usually begin a reading or do a reading for myself or for others. And then what you would do is I'm going to show you a little bit what these things look like, right? So there are several. I'm going to stop share for a moment, and there are many guides. So these are the ones that I like to use. Let me do this the other way, might be easier. So I like to have mine in a little bag, like ancient times, on wood. And so all of those symbols that you saw before, now you can find them. And as you pull them, you can grab them upside up or upside down. And depending on which way they present themselves to you, they will also have a different meaning, whether they're upright or they're upside down. They have different kinds of meanings, and there's different interpretations. One of my favorite rune book of all times is this one. It's called the Book of Runes. This one is now the 25th. Can you see it? Yes. Okay, perfect. So this one happens to have the runes in a kind of like ceramic and a pouch that I love to kind of put my fingers through, and I hear the noises and the crinkling, and it rummages, and there's something really amazing how I'll feel like somehow one of them sticks to my fingers. And that will be the rune that I'm drawn to. And then I'll place it in front of me and I'll look at it and determine whether it's face side up, and whether if it's face side down, then I have to just ask my guidance, do I turn it this way or do I turn it that way? Because it'll determine whether it shows upright or upside down for me. And the meaning, I always read both sides of the meaning anyway, because I always think that there's duality in all that is. And at least in this manifestation, and this is something we're going to be talking about, and Carol's going to be sharing with us, because we were having this phenomenal conversation about duality just before we started the show, and to bring to light how important it is that whatever it is that we're working on, it has its light and its dark, right? In this manifestation, in the world, we have duality. And so for joy, there's sorrow. And for everything, it's opposite and equal, let's say. So when you're working on something and you get one of the runes and it shows you a path, it'll also show you on the hidden or other aspect that you may consider working on as well, so that you're covering both sides of that duality. So that's a beautiful thing that we're going to be talking about much more when Carol leads us next time. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you a couple more books and a couple more reference points. This is another one that I happen to really like because it gives you the pronunciation of the runes. It gives you a little bit of information about the alphabets, and it's also a great divination tool. And then lastly, this is another one that I highly recommend that I've really enjoyed. Oh, let me make sure. There we go. So that everybody, there's a few options. Personally, the first one that I showed you, the Book of Runes, is the one that I've been using for many, many years. So, ladies, let's open it up to everyone. And I'd love to answer some questions if you have some questions or shared some thoughts or your experience of any of these things, please.
I got questions.
Yes, Kathy. Love it.
What
Okay.
does divination even mean? What does the word divination mean?
Beautiful. So in ancient times, it was used as something that could tell you what the future holds. That was the principle. Divination basically means that the divine would show and reveal itself somehow by being able to tell you what the future holds.
Gotcha.
And so it's an interesting way nowadays, or the more spiritual work we do, the more we realize we are constantly co-creating that reality. And what all of these methods of divination are showing us is they're revealing right now what is likely to unfold because of all of the decisions and all of the experiences we've had up to this moment. Now, one of the things that I love to share about divination tools is that there's no set future. None of this is set in stone. We create our future constantly by the choices we make. So even when we see something that perhaps, you know, I've heard a lot of people be afraid of, like when I did tarot readings, but what if I get, no, relax. What you're doing is you're asking the universe and your guides to show you where you're at, to give you deeper clarity, to give you an understanding of what's likely to unfold, so that then you can make different choices about it, right? Or what you can learn from it. Yeah. And I love that Carol put something in the chat. She said that she noticed that they were numbered right to left. And it's absolutely true. Yes, you read them right to left, unlike our sort of Greek alphabet, I think, or Roman alphabet, which is the one that we currently use, which is from left to right. So yes, these were read and written right to left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as you were speaking about it, I was kind of thinking of tarot readings. Because when you flip the card, it depends on which direction it is, or, you know, and and even using that, I guess, as my divination, because that's what I use sometimes when I'm low. I'm like, okay, maybe if I just go, let me get some guidance right now, and I'll pull a card. I have a few decks of not only tarots, but like angel cards and different things. So I'll pull one and I'm like, okay, this is where you are right now. And it usually speaks to exactly where I am right at that time. So
it's magical how that happens. That's
yeah.
exactly what you want. It's so beautiful because sometimes it'll be like, oh yeah, that's what's happening. That now I get to see it.
Yeah.
And it becomes a mirror oftentimes of that part that perhaps I call it our blind spots. I always say that we have like little blind spots behind our ears, and you say, somebody can say, oh, it's right behind your ear, and you go like, what, where? But you're gonna miss it. Right? So to me, these tools have been a huge source of guidance over the years. And I love that you, like you said, you have angel cards, you have tarot.
Right.
We will be sharing in future shows about the I Ching, about the tarot, about angel cards, and you know, the different tools that we each use, so that you can have a few to pick from, and each one you'll find will support you in different ways for different things. So I find that the runes tend to really guide me in terms of direction when I need the archetypal clarity, when I need to see what's the big picture here. What am I missing somehow? I tend to love looking at the runes because the descriptions tend to be archetypal, and they tend to describe a bit of a journey, of a spiritual journey, of a wisdom journey.
Now, can you just explain archetypal? Because I think, yeah, can you just explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you think, I mean, I don't know how familiar everybody is with kind of the Jung theory of psychology, but the archetypes are kind of the, what would you call them? Pillars of the human existence, or the human experience, let's say. For women, you could say that the young maiden and the mother and the crone are archetypes of the woman and the female experience, right? So the virginal young maiden was an archetype. The wise grown woman or the crone is an archetype. The mother is an archetype. So in the hero's journey, we go through several archetypes and several processes of understanding that these are aspects that most people will go through at one point or another, and that we can relate to by understanding the archetype, by seeing the archetype. Does that make sense?
That does.
I would love you guys to jump in. And Carol, I'm sure you have some great descriptions of that. Please.
Yes, you're spot on, actually. But what I would add is that an archetype is a universal attribute that we all can relate to according to that particular description of what Cronus or Venus. When people talk about their sun signs, they talk about Taurus, and they ascribe these universal attributes. That's an archetype. That doesn't mean that we are that, but it shows up as a general manifestation of that sign or whatever we're talking about. That's an archetype.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Right. Yeah, they both do.
So I'd love to hear, what are some archetypes that you ladies relate to or that have been important in your lives at a certain point or another?
I guess I've had a few. I guess mother, like, because it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like being a mother, definitely a wife. Yeah.
Kathy, any that you would like to share? Sorry, I just noticed you muted. Sorry, I wasn't sure whether
And
something.
thank you for starting to talk, but one that I feel like I'm stepping into is, and I don't relate to the name, but the queen is another archetype of stage. But again, it's kind of like, it doesn't sound like me, but I'm certain I'm headed that way.
I love it. Why not? Right? All the things that we embody, and either that we can relate to already or things that we aspire to, which is another thing about the beauty of the archetypes, is that wisdom or that medicine woman or that shaman that we can aspire to embody. That shifting. I have a dear client who said to me, I went from princess to queen and I'm owning my queen. And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's true. It was stepping into her adulthood. It was stepping into her also owning her own mind and right to choose to rule her world in her way. So I love that. That's fantastic. So these runes show some archetypes the same way that they embody some values. For example, like strength, right? So Odin, the god of war, he was the god of heroes. And in the hero's journey, he would protect the fallen and would lead them to Valhalla, to their version of heaven, right? So some of these runes are not just archetypes, but embody certain values. And we can all relate and connect to what those values can be, right? Strength, peace. Boy, would I like a lot of peace, right? That inner strength, that resilience. Sometimes when we're going through really difficult moments and we pull that card or we pull that stone and we can feel something from the universe guiding us and saying, you got this. There's a wonderful feeling in that strength. I'd love to hear what some of the values that are important for you ladies that you feel are helpful or have been things that you've used, whether they're amulets, whether they're values, whether they're goddesses, whether they are angels, whatever they may be that have given you strength or guidance along the way. I would love for you please to share some of that.
Well, when I was making some really big decisions about investing in a particular, making an investment, there were a lot of questions that needed to be answered, and some questions I didn't even know to ask. But then when I consulted the I Ching, with particular questions. It would give me responses that I didn't have enough information. So that prompted me then to begin to ask different questions and get answers to those questions. And I asked a series of questions. As I got more information, more questions would come up that I would consult the I Ching with, to the point that I finally was at where it was giving me consistent answers according to the decision that I was leaning toward. And I made the decision based on not only the I Ching, but my other people in my life that I was consulting with. And when I finally came to a decision, I was at peace with it.
Yeah.
And that's what the I Ching helped me to do.
So powerful.
Yeah.
Joanna, would you share? You were sharing about your angel cards or the tarot. Is there something
Right.
that you would like to?
Oh, I mean, I practice so many. I kind of have my guides, and that's what I go to, really. And as much as we hear them, sometimes we do get a little low, and that's when I use my cards. I'll use just that time of meditation, and I'm big on frequency. So my crystals, I have a room that I could just sit in and kind of let the frequency hit me, and putting on the right megahertz to kind of play while it's a ritual. So when I need to get my spirit back up, there's things, each time it may take all of it. Like I need to do everything today. I need to lay here with every crystal on every chakra. Like there's days like that. And then there's days where I just need to sit. And so for me, the biggest part of my journey has been coming into tune to me. So the more I come into tune with me, that's what I've been called to do. So when, like I say, shit hits the fan, it's like, go sit in the corner. I got to check myself. So go sit in the corner. And that's with all the crystals and everything around, and learning to just go within and talk to my healing master. I have a healing master that's with me all the time that I talk to. So me and him chat quite often.
You know what I love of what you just shared, Joanna? They're so powerful. Sometimes when things happen, and they do to all of us, right? And like you said, the shit hits the fan, whether it's be in relationship, whether it's usually in relationship to someone or something, that going inside that you said, go to the corner and go inside is so powerful, because the first reaction tends to be looking at the outside, looking at or blame. Right. And somebody or something made me feel or did to me. Whereas the only point of power is to be able to go inside and say, okay, how did I co-create some of this? What is this showing me? How is this showing up for me?
And that took years, Claudia. That took years. And I'm
35 and still working on it.
Still working on it.
Precisely. So when I'm having a hard time looking inside, that's the other time that I find this incredibly helpful. Precisely when I feel that it's a struggle to look at where I've contributed to this, or what this is showing me. That's when I will grab a rune and say, okay, guide me, please. Masters, guides, universe.
And what I do during that time really is I go for a reading. I would go for a reading. So I use the power of someone else to kind of instill in me at that time. And yeah, so I have a community, because I've been through school for that. So they have readings every week that we can go to and share in. So I'm able, and I actually do that twice a month just to keep my spirit going and stuff. So that's maintenance for me.
I love that. That is
What's
maintenance.
maintenance?
I don't know if you ladies do this, but every single year I need to do my new solar chart, my astrology, kind of the solar return, just to see where I'm at and what's coming for me. And I love to do readings on my career, or I love to do central readings on precisely where am I, my numerology for that year, kind of revisit what that looks like. What is the essence of that year for me? What the lessons could be. So
Yeah.
these are all ways that that these tools support us. Kathy, anything you would like to share in terms of things that you use before we go into doing a little reading of the runes?
My backup's usually the tarot, and I like how Carol said, usually it's when I feel like there's a choice, and sometimes you're kind of leaning towards something, but it's like, is there something I don't know? And that's what I find a lot of times, it returns you back to the bigger picture of like, oh wait, all of this, and this is one option, and there's others as well. But the piece, like Carol said, that you get to when you're at that decision.
Yeah, that's so powerful and helpful. All right, ladies. Well, I'm going to read you a quick little Nordic poem that is an invocation from the runes. And I'm going to share this with everyone. And then we're going to have each one of you ladies think of a question or something you would like guidance on. And I'll pick a rune for you. I'll just put my hand in the bag and kind of rummage through them until you feel called to say that one. And I'll pull out whatever it is for you, and we'll share and show everyone what a reading can feel like and look like. All right, so I could ask the same question, by the way. Goodness gracious, ladies, I love you. You're gonna crack me up. Okay.
Oh my God.
Try to be serious for one moment here.
Oh my God.
I don't know if can everybody see the chat? Can everybody see it on the YouTube? No, that's just us. Oh goodness.
I'm hoping not.
I'll fill you all in later. So back to trying to get through this for a moment. God within me, God without. How shall I ever be in doubt? There is no place where I may go and not there see God's face, not know I am God's vision in God's ears. So through the harvest of my years, I am the sower and I am the sown, God's self unfolding and God's own. And to me, that's such a beautiful, powerful, it gives me the goosebumps every time I read it. And so I'll read that before I begin a reading. And having created just sort of a sacred space of asking our guides, our masters, anything and all that we believe in to support us. Who would like to go first? All right, ladies, who's going to volunteer?
I'll go.
All right. All right.
I want the abundance card. Does it have to be a more specific question?
So you can share the question or you can keep it to yourself, whichever you prefer. Let's make it something that you would really like guidance upon. And think of something where you would like your masters, you would like the universe to give you a little more guidance about. And I'm rummaging through all the runes. And when you're ready, you'll tell me.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Ah, beautiful. So here we go. This is, it's called opening, and it's the beginning of things. All right. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it's guiding you on. Here we go. Kano, opening, fire, or a torch. This is the rune of new openings, of renewed clarity, of dispelling the darkness that has been shrouding some part of your life. You are free now, both to receive gifts and to know the joy of non-attached giving. I have goosebumps, by the way, all over my body right about now. This is a very special rune for you. Kano is the rune for the morning of activities, for seriousness, for clear intent, and concentration, all of which are essential at the beginning of any new endeavor. One of the 13 cycle runes, the protection offered by Kano is this: the more light you have, the better you can see what is trivial and outmoded in your own conditioning. So in relationships, there can now be a mutual opening up, which you may trigger and set in motion through your awareness that the light of understanding is once again available to you both. Recognize that while on one hand you are limited and dependent, on the other you exist as a perfect center where the harmonious and the beneficent forces of the universe merge and radiate. You are that center. Simply put, you have been operating in the dark, and there is now enough light to see that the patient on the operating table is yourself. You get to work on you. Reversed. Reversed, it's the darkening of the light in some situation or relationship that you are now probably coming out of. A friendship may have been difficult, a marriage or partnership may have dissipated, or some aspect has been challenging. Reverse, this rune points to the death of a way of being that is no longer valid and puts you on notice that failure to face consciously that death and mourn it and let it go constitute a loss of an opportunity. This is your chance for new beginnings. I love that.
Good one.
Yeah, beautiful. Is there anything that you would like to share in terms of what that brought up for you, or in terms of what that means to you at this moment with the question you asked?
Well, just it kind of relates to the conversation we were having before we hopped on, of how we all create the contrast if we're not looking at things. And I like how it said that the light is bright enough that you can see the person on the operating table is actually you. So it can move to new opening as soon as I consciously face what I know is there that I haven't been willing to up until now.
Mhm.
So
Beautiful. That's so powerful, Kathy. I love this rune for you. All right.
thanks.
My pleasure. Who's next, ladies?
All right, I'll go.
Perfect, Carol.
All right. So what direction should I take this week with regards to creating videos?
Okay. And you say when?
Now,
Ooh, perfect. And you got, oh, yes, yes, yes. So we've got the gateway.
hmm,
So page 133. I wish I knew them all by heart, but I don't. I've been using them for years and I can give you the basics, but I much rather read them and give you the precise answer. So the gateway, the place of non-action, or the god Thor. With a gateway for its symbol, this rune indicates that there is work to be done both inside and outside of yourself. Thorisaz represents the frontier between heaven and the mundane. Arriving here is a recognition of your readiness to contact the numinous, the divine, to illuminate your experience so that its meaning shines through its form. So look how beautiful that is. So if we think about how we apply that, right, in the question that you asked, how
Yeah.
wonderful is that? Thorisaz is a rune of non-action. Thus, the gateway is not to be approached and passed through without contemplation first. Here, you are being confronted with a clear reflection of what is hidden in yourself, what must be exposed and examined before right action can be undertaken. This rune strengthens your ability to wait. Now is not the time to make a decision. Deep transformational forces are at work in this next to last of the cycle runes. Visualize yourself standing before a gateway on a hilltop. Your entire life lies out behind you and below. Before you step through the gateway, pause and reflect and review the past, the learning and the joys, the victories and the sorrows, everything it took for you to be who you are here and now. Observe all of it, bless it all, release it all, for it is in letting go of the past that you reclaim your power. And now you can step through the gateway.
Wow. That's really beautiful.
So beautiful. So beautiful. And you drew it upside up, but I'm going to give you just an example of what the reversed means, right? Because I always like to look at the duality of things to work on the completeness. A quickening of your development is indicated here. Yet even in times of accelerated growth, you will have reason to halt along the way, to reconsider the old, to integrate the new, to learn new ways of doing things. Take advantage of these halts. Right? It is you are undergoing, if you are undergoing difficulties, remember, the nature of your passage depends upon the quality of your attitude, the clarity of your intention, and the steadfastness of your will. Be certain that you are not suffering over your own suffering. And that's really interesting and fun too, when we look at trying something new, right? And doing something new and how to go about it. And is it the right time to do it? Well, what a beautiful answer. And I love the part that it said that you get to look at all that it's taken for you to be exactly here now.
Mm-hmm.
And also then be able to release the old so that you can step into the new. I thought that was so beautiful. Tell me about your interpretation, Carol, and what you feel you're gaining from that.
Well, what I was receiving is that I have a wealth and a deep well of experiences to pull from, to draw from, and to sit quietly to really go into the depths of what it is that I want to share. So that I don't just share something willy-nilly out of just having something, needing something to share.
Mhm.
Actually stop and contemplate and go into with full heart and awareness of what it is that I really want to share with the world, so that I can share it in such a way that it really lands for others.
Exactly.
And that it's meaningful.
So powerful. And I felt that guidance. I felt exactly that being given to you, that by just noticing to stop and go within, you will find those answers rather than rush to it and jump into it. All of that wisdom that you have, you will be guided to start delivering in those videos exactly as you do that inner work. And it's so powerful.
And not grasping and grabbing at something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And I know of a little workshop that's coming up that might give you some insight into that.
Please share.
I've created a way to do unlocking your zone of genius and discovering how to do that in a workshop that's going to unlock your abundance. When we work from our zone of genius, when we find precisely that we are in that zone of bliss that connects everything from what we love to do and what we are guided to do and what we're inspired to do with what we're good at and with what serves others, something magical happens. And then the flow we are in that zone of bliss, in that zone of genius, and the flow happens in ways that magnify our message, magnify our service, magnify our impact in the world. And I've used this one-on-one with people, and I've just decided a few months ago that I really wanted to find a way to bring this to more people at once. And I am offering a class, a workshop, a deep dive workshop on March 29th and March 31st called Unlock Your Abundance. And it's working from your zone of genius and discovering how to find that zone of bliss. And I will be sharing the where to get more information about that afterwards in the chat, if possible. I don't know if we can share that with everyone, but it's basically claudiarocafort.com/unlock-your-abundance. And you can get information there. And I can't wait to have you ladies there.
I'm looking forward to it. What we'll do is we'll share it in the description of today's show.
Oh, fantastic. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Joanna.
Yes, my question. So I
Yes,
guess my
ma'am.
question would be, I'm thinking, it's gotta be something. I just, let's see, how do I word it? I don't know how to word it. What is my direction, or what is my stance with my son?
Okay. So guidance
With my
about
son. That's what I'm looking for.
what you can, what
Yeah.
steps.
So,
Mhm.
now.
Ooh, I love it. Okay, beautiful. So this was your room, and this is separation.
Mm.
So 98. Separation, retreat, or inheritance is what this rune stands for.
Mm.
This is a time of separating paths. Old skins must be shed, outmoded relationships discarded. When you receive this rune, a peeling away is called for. Part of the cycle of initiation, Othila, is a rune of radical severance. Now, you received it in the reverse, which is going to have a slightly different meaning, but I'm sharing this all because it's all part of the journey and the lesson.
Okay.
The appropriate action here is submission and quite possibly retreat. Knowing how and when to retreat and possessing the firmness of will to carry it out. Real property is associated with Othila, for it is the rune of acquisition and benefits. However, the benefits you receive, the inheritance, may be derived from something you must give up. This can be particularly demanding when what you are called upon to abandon is some aspect of your own behavior, or a part of your cultural inheritance, or a belief you've held dearly. For then you must look closely at what, until now, you have proudly claimed as your birthright. Whether it is your attachment to your position in society, or to the work that you do, or even to your beliefs about your own nature, the separation called for will free you to become more truly who you are.
Mm.
In the reversed, this is not the time to be bound by old conditioning or old authority. Consider not only what will benefit you, but what will benefit the others involved, and act according to the light that you possess now in your life. Because you may be called upon to undertake a radical departure from old ways, total honesty is required. Otherwise, through negligence or refusal to see clearly, you may cause pain to others and damage to yourself. Adaptability and skillful means are the methods to cultivate at this time. And still, you must wait for the universe to act. Receiving this rune, remember, we do without doing, and everything gets done.
Got it. I got it. Clear.
Powerful advice. Wow. Would you like to share what you are taking away from that and how you perceive how that made you feel?
It was good because sometimes I'm told I could detach easily, but I knew this time it was a point where it was my ownership, and I no longer wanted the old Joanna to be viewed anymore. So I have to teach people how to treat the new Joanna, and sometimes it don't feel good. And me separating is not to hurt, it's necessary. So it just confirmed that's what it is. It's necessary for the growth of us both. And yeah, I mean it's really confirming everything that was kind of was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, separation is not always easy, but when it's necessary, you know, you go through it.
And sometimes it is separation from the person, but more often than not, it's separation from the old ways of behavior.
And
Right.
that's what it is too. Right.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's, you know, us both being treated differently. He's they're men now.
Really powerful, ladies. I love seeing this when, it's one thing when you're doing it for yourself or you're doing it with one person, but to share it and see 3 different readings be so spot on for what each person is working on and is experiencing is so beautiful. Do you feel that way?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was
One of
powerful.
the things, Joanne, I was going to say too, is that, we tend to be in relationship with the people in our lives from the perspective of our history with one another. And we bring our history into the present. And so
Right.
when we can be aware of that fact alone, we have choice in that moment to allow a person to be who they are in a particular moment, separate from the history.
And the separation is just temporary, it's like hitting the refresh button. So it takes a moment, but from being able to let go of that history into the present moment, it seems like that same kind of theme can apply to each one of our questions in a way of almost coming to peace with this moment of not rushing into that action, but just allowing a time to go within and refresh that perspective so that, when we do come back, it's from what's right in this present moment. I love
that.
Mm.
And to be able to see that person, what you said, Carol, is so powerful, to be
Yeah.
able to let go of the history so that you can see them anew with the reality of who they are today and the reality of who you are today. Can I look at them without that story? With
That's
fresh
what it
eyes?
is, with fresh eyes.
Yeah. Who they've
Right.
become, who they're becoming, and who you've become.
Right.
That's such a gift. Thank you, Carol. That's so powerful.
Mhm.
Yeah. That one, I think about that all the time as my son is now a teenager and changing rapidly. And my relationship is changing. I need to remember and remind myself constantly, look at him with fresh eyes. He's not my baby anymore. And I get to discover what he believes now, what he's willing to share with me. So on that note, I'm going to do a quick mini reading for myself.
Yes.
Goodness, and good question. What I was sharing with you ladies earlier. On Friday, I was confronted with some old family patterns, and I would like guidance from my masters, my guides, from the runes, from the universe, as to what I get to learn from that experience. Ah. So this is goodness, flow. I love you, Carol. She's cracking up with me. Right. Yeah. So that you can all share a little bit what this means. Flow is laguz, which means water or that which conducts. Unseen powers are active here, powers that nourish, shape, and connect. The attributes of this rune are water, shape, fluidity, the ebb and flow of emotions, careers, and relationships. Laguz encourages you to immerse yourself in the experience of living without having to evaluate or understand. It speaks to the satisfaction of emotional needs, to the awakening of the intuitive or the lunar side of your nature. For while the sun strives for differentiation, the moon draws us toward union and emerging. This rune often signals a time for cleansing, for reevaluating, reorganizing, realigning, a rune of deep knowing. It may call you to study spiritual matters in readiness for self-transformation. Success now lies in contacting your intuitive wisdom and attuning to your own rhythms. A rune of the self relating rightly to the higher self. Laguz signifies what alchemists call the conjunction or sacred marriage. In fairy tales, it is the end where the hero and the heroine live happily ever after. Reversed, a counsel against overreaching and excessive striving. Drawing flow reversed is a warning against trying to exceed your own strength or operate beyond the power you have found it to date in your life. Laguz reversed often indicates a failure to draw upon the wisdom of instinct. As a result, the intuitive side of your nature may be languished, leaving you out of balance. What is called for now is to go within, to honor the receptive side of your warrior nature. And it's so powerful and it's so true. And it's a beautiful mirror for me to remember to connect with my inner self and honor it and honor my intuition and allow myself to flow, go with the flow and stop fighting some things that come up. So, hi, ladies.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to share with you all. Thank you for sharing your
Today.
wisdom,
Thank you.
your inner guidance, and your inner vulnerability as well.
Yeah, thank you. This was beautiful.
My pleasure. Anybody have any questions before we go on to what we're going to be talking about next week? Well, in 2 weeks.
I love all these different ancient tools that we have to tap into because they are so sacred and they are, it's the wisdom of that which we can't see. You know, the as above, so below concept. You know, what's happening here is happening out there, that which we can't see.
Exactly.
And the information that we're open to receiving is open to all of us. We just have to be willing to be open to receive. And it's really life mirroring back to us all of that which we're experiencing.
And it's exactly that. It's that beautiful way to be able to see, to see ourselves in the mirror, to see our soul somehow, our spirit, where we are in our growth, what are next steps, what are cycles. We know it on some level, but not on the level in which I find that this guidance helps us say, oh, aha, I got now I remember. Now I see. Now I notice. Oh yeah, that that too. And for me at least, this reading was a lot of that. It was like, oh yes, of course. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies. Now, Carol, you're going to be talking to us next session. Please share a little bit about what you're going to be sharing with us.
Love to. I have been trained by a Jungian therapist over the past 20 plus years. Whoops, sorry. Ivanhoe's calling. And one of the things that really has changed my life is the concept of dualities, reconciliation of opposites. You can't have light without dark. You can't have heads without tails. We always have, there's always two sides of a coin, and they operate always simultaneously. And so I'm going to be talking about next time that we come together, which is on April 9th, about
Oh, second, April 2nd.
Oh, April
April
2nd, sorry. April 2nd, about the nature of dualities and how we can actually go about bringing them together, and rather than bounce between one or the other, so that we're not pushed and pulled from pillar to post.
Ooh.
Good one.
Powerful.
That one's got my name on it.
It's got all of our names on it.
I really want to navigate into that flow.
And see it with fresh eyes. I need to see it with fresh eyes. I'm ready.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for a wonderful evening. And I hope you all enjoy. Lots of love and light.
Thank you.
Bye.